This tutorial will teach you how to make the skeleton for your furniture. The skeleton is a very simplified, basic shape of your model. So we will start from a simple sketch drawn on the XY plane, which is basically the top view. So looking from the top, we see a rectangle. So let's make a center point rectangle. And here we can enter the value of the width as well as the depth of this rectangle. Go back to the 3D by using Finish Sketch button. And here we can make an extrusion. Again, we can enter some parameter like height and assign the value to it. So now, when we have the box, we can define the front to make our work more convenient. Now we can enter the parameters like the body panel thickness, facade panel thickness, and internal panel thickness. Those parameters can be changed in the future if needed. So it's necessary to have an underline if your parameters have multiple words. So if there is more than 2 words, then you need to use underline in between those words. Okay, when we have a parameter list, we can close this window. Now we are going to the skeleton that is up, and we need to pick the base skeleton. Now we select all the faces except the front and hold the Ctrl to remove it. Now we define the position as well as from the list of the parameters we can choose the panel thickness. And as you can see, we have panels all around. Now we're going to the visibility and hide the skeletons. When the skeletons are not visible, we can use miter to select pairs of panels and make a miter between them. Okay, and we have a 45 degrees cut, so we can close this window. Now we are going to the trim. So we are choosing what panel to trim, and it will be trimmed by all surrounding panels. Let's make a new sketch, project cut edges to have a contour. We can mark all this geometry and set it as a construction. Now we can draw our own lines. Those would be like separators in between multiple sections of our cabinet. Because the distance between those would be equal, we can use such a trick. Let's draw lines in between center points, and later we can say that those lines are equal. Okay, but first let's mark them again as a construction lines, and we can say that those are equal. So now we can finish the sketch. And we can use those lines as a base for our workplane. We can choose the line and the surface and say that this line is like the reference for the workplane. Okay, so now we have the workplanes. We are going to skeleton dress up. Now we are enabling the visibility of the skeleton. We can use dress up again, choosing the base, body, and those workplanes. Again, a parameter, and as well direction. It goes in both directions, so those separators would be right in the middle. Okay, now the sketch can be hidden, and we are going back to the skeleton visibility control to hide it, temporary, and we can use trim to trim those newly created panels. That's it. So looking from the front, we have nice basic. Let's make a new sketch, and in this case, we again project cut edges to have a reference geometry. So let's draw a shape of a door on the right, and again let's make a new extrusion. So in this case, we need to define the thickness from a list of parameters, and we're making a new body for this door, but it's too big, so we need to reduce the size of this door. In this case, we will use offset inside by 1.5 millimeter. So we're finishing the sketch. Now we're going to make an extrusion. We're using intersect, and as you can see, now we have a spacing all around the door. So now we need some more parameters, like the quantity of the drawers. which is not measured in millimeter, it's measured in unitless. So we're changing the unit to UL and setting the quantity, which will be 3. So we can make the same for the shelf. So the shelf quantity will be also measured in unitless units, and amount of the shelves would be 2. On the skeleton, we need to create only one occurrence of the repeated item. So let's make a new sketch. Again, project the cut edges, mark this as a construction using right click, and here we can draw the shape of our shelf. Okay. Because we want to define the height, we are putting the midpoint on the edge, and as well we define the offset from a side. Okay, so those would be equal. We can choose the parameter by simply clicking on it. So now we are making a reference parameter, which would be used to measure the height. So we can use the right click on it to change the name. So it would be called like niche height. Okay, now we can define the position like niche height divided by list parameters shelf quantity plus 1, because we are usually making a spacings, not the shelves. And finally, we need to define the thickness of a shelf, again from the list of parameters. Okay, finally we can finish the sketch, go back to 3D to make an extrusion, and it goes to the back of the cabinet as a new solid. Okay, so now we can use direct to move front of the shelf slightly. Okay, so now we need to draw a cabinet, a drawer facade. So let's make a shape of it. Now we need to define the distance of a facade of the drawer as a niche height divided by drawer quantity. So that's it. And again, we can finish the sketch, make a new extrusion as a new solid body. Okay, but it's too big, so we can do some adjustments by hiding all the rest of the components, and we can draw the shape of the drawer. Okay, so we can define the offset from the top as well as from the bottom. So now we can use right click to show all the components, but we need to hide the skeleton again to make our work more convenient. And we can go back to extrusion, and we are using not the distance but 2 operator to make a new solid which will represent the box of the drawer. Okay, again we can switch back to the faces and edges priority, and we can reduce the size of the facade because, as you remember, it was too big. Okay, so let's make an extrusion with the intersect parameter, and that's it. Now we have a spacing. Okay, so at this moment we made our reference skeleton. So as you can see, it's very simplified model of our furniture. Now we are ready to go to the next step.